Welcome, everyone. This is Lowell Ann, host of the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle. We got together because we enjoy each other's company. We love sharing our knowledge with each other, and we do a little business sometimes. We learn a lot of things. We get a little bit of practice here. So before we move on to introducing our participants this morning, for anyone who is out there listening, I hope that you will visit the VCP plugin page, which is on my website. And on that page, you will see what our operating principles are. We've had numerous conversations about those operating principles in the past and decided that the better way would be to show them there for whoever comes to visit. So I encourage everyone to familiarize themselves with those operating principles because that does say what we're all about. So this morning, we're going to have an interesting conversation. But first of all, it's important that all of my participants have the opportunity to introduce themselves and say what they do. So rather than trying to remember who came on first and second or whatever, I think I will just go with my left hand and invite Alana to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alana, and I'm over here in Ireland, so it's about 8 or 9 hours ahead of you guys in Canada. My website is emptynestorblog.com, where I help empty nesters try to make money online, and I also have a virtual assistant business part-time, so between the two of them I'm usually kept busy. So I'm happy to be here.
And in front of your computer most of the time.
Yes, I am in front of my computer most of the time.
Welcome here, and I'm very happy that you didn't have any ill effects from the hurricane.
Thank you. We're happy about that too.
I'm sure you are.
We have a tree. I was worried about the tree we have, a eucalyptus out the front yard, and yeah, it showed signs of snapping, but it actually never did, thank God. So.
Well, speaking of that, one of our regulars texted me this morning and said that he may not be able to come because a tree fell out of his neighbor's yard onto his house. And,
oh no!
But no damage. But the tree people were coming to do whatever needs to be done. So he may or may not be able to stop by later on. So.
Well, one thing that I found interesting is with all the trees that are down, everyone here is pretty industrious. There's lots of cars going around with little trailers behind them, and they're all like scooping up all that wood for their fire. So it's not, there's probably nothing left now. It's all gone.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're expecting a storm here, which probably will make undoubtedly will mean that most of the leaves will fall off today, I would think.
That's a shame.
Yes, it is, but happens every year.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So welcome here, Alana.
Thank
now
you.
Let's move on to well, let's do the gender thing. How about you, Gina?
Okay, there you go. Sorry, I'm going to identify as female today.
You are?
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Gina Donaldson of Personal Passage Planning. I help adults of all ages prepare for planned and unplanned changes in their lives so that they can respond and recover. I also do public speaking on topics of interest such as preparing for change in our senior years, late life romances, and basically whatever interests people, including grieving and aging.
So Gina, I heard about sort of a network in Victoria of people who do all sorts of different teach or do a lot of things for people as they age. Are you part of that network?
Yes, it's called the Elder Friendly Care Network. And we meet once a month, and we have guest speakers come in every month. So we've covered topics such as medicinal marijuana, which was very enlightening, MAID, so medically assisted in dying, law for seniors, those sort of things. So we get a lot of heart attacks in women. So those are the sort of topics we get on a regular basis.
It's a very worthwhile group. I saw that medical use of marijuana, and unfortunately they're on Thursday now, and I have another commitment, so I wanted to go.
Well, it was very interesting, and I think a lot of people, it really opened their eyes to what the possibilities are and how elements of marijuana can help people deal with a lot of issues, and it's often more effective than pharmaceuticals. So we all opened our eyes a little bit wider that day.
Changing our belief systems.
Well, I was, having been in the forces, I was not allowed to go near it. So it's just the culture of not even engaging that. But it looks like it has its purposes for some people.
Yes, I have a friend who has a very serious MS. And she claims that she would get no sleep whatsoever without it.
Yeah, it does help a lot of people sleep better.
Yeah. So I'm happy that you made it here this morning.
Thank you.
And yes, I guess everybody would recognize that Gina is also in Victoria. Right?
Even though I'm dry.
Yeah, right on. So welcome here. Now, what about you, Fred? You're not here in Victoria right now, are you?
I'm back from White Rock, and now I'm in Sydney, which is, as you know, I guess part of Victoria, the greater Victoria area. So I'm back in Sydney for a while.
And tell us about
for Australia. Well, what I'm involved with is ourfutureleaders.ca. So unlike Gina, I work with young people, even though I'm one of those older people. And I encourage young people, mainly from the age of 18 to 16, to use their creativity, do public speaking, also learn how to run and organize meetings, so leadership skills, which helps them in the future, because the way the world's going, they're going to need to be creative. The world's changing so rapidly, so it helps them with self-confidence, and as they face the future world that's about to evolve and hit them very hard. Because there was a recent article, and there's a lot of them coming out now, 70% of the jobs that currently exist are going to disappear within the next decade or so. And that's what they're going to face. So these are skills they require. So it's a lot of fun as well. When I was in White Rock, I went to a group of people who were just starting up. It was actually Chinese. Every young person in that group, there was a dozen of them, were all from China, but they're all here in Canada going to high school. It's phenomenal to watch them. And it was very interesting, fascinating to see them work as a group.
So basically what, drawing on my experience with First Nations, you're one of the elders. You're an elder.
Yeah.
An elder really.
But a lot of fun.
And I this is something that I learned this years ago. Initially, I thought the term elder really only meant age, whereas in the First Nations culture, elder means wise. The person.
That's me. Yeah.
The people who are wise and have something valuable to share. Yeah.
I just enjoy working with young people. One of the other things that keeps me young, I have a lot of friends who call me Fred, and they can be the age of 8 to 16, and it's phenomenal to meet somebody on the street and say, "Hi, Fred," and come up and chat to me, and they're young people. It's phenomenal. It really keeps me going. It's great way to operate, in my opinion.
Yes. Intergenerational communication and activity and community, very important.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, well, welcome here. I'm glad you're back, and nice to have you here. Let's see, Jay, I think you're next in line. What's going on out in your neck of the woods?
Well, it's sunny, and I actually got a burn on the way here. Hi, my name is Jay, and my company is Magi Studios, and we help people get started in the world of online marketing through coach, consulting, and training. Hailing from Langford, British Columbia, which is a very close area to Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and things are awesome. Looking forward to talking about, which I actually forget what the topic is today.
You just have to wait.
Oh, all right. I'll sit on my hands. Huh?
Oh, welcome here. And isn't it interesting that Langford is a municipality in and of itself, but if you want to send mail to anybody in Langford, the address is Victoria. So.
That's how we roll out here, yo.
Yeah, that's another thing we could talk about forever, is the number of municipalities we have here.
We can bring John Vickers in and make it really lively.
Right. So I'm glad you're here, Jay. And Nathan, nice to see you back. What's happening in your world?
A lot of stuff going on, actually. I'm house sitting at the moment. I've been doing that for 3 months. I'm in the area of Nuevo Vallarta, which is north of Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So in terms of what I'm doing, a rather radical departure. Wound up getting together with a colleague of mine. His name is Hamish Baston. And we formed a podcast called The Thought Hackers just over a month ago. We've got 19 shows published. Mm-hmm. And to date, about 1,400 downloads. And the one major highlight that's going to come up in a couple of days is yesterday I interviewed a guy by the name of Richard Turner. And Richard Turner is the #1. What makes it even more amazing is that Richard Turner is totally blind. He can't see anything at all. And he is able to do incredible things. So,
Nathan, there was a kind of a glitch there. So,
my internet.
Could you say something about your person you interviewed again? You said he was the #1 person in, and then it broke up.
Joy with my internet. #1 card magician in the world. He calls himself a card mechanic. He can make anyone win or lose at will. And what makes it even more impressive, what he can do, is he's totally blind. He can't see anything. And I interviewed him. Did lose me again?
No.
Oh, okay. I saw Roland shaking his head there, so I wasn't sure. Anyway, the interview was about his attitude, how he keeps going. He started losing his sight when he was 9 years old, and it was all about how does he keep himself up? What does he do? How does he view life? How is he successful? Like, he's a karate expert.
Okay, and so Nathan, why don't you give us a link so we can go and hear it rather than?
Well, the show's not live yet. It's not live for a couple of days, but the site is called thethoughthackers.com. There are a whole bunch of interviews on there now.
Okay, right on. So we're happy you're here.
Thank you.
So, Roland, what's new with you?
Everything is new, but we'll just review what we've been through here. Hi, Roland from Southern California, and my company is MinMax Media, where we talk about the minimum you need for the maximum impact I sponsor the DIY livestreamingshow.com website, and we feature Saturday morning marketing smarties. And our WP VCP plugin for events is now live and kicking and available through WordPress.
And that is just great news. And remind me when this all started. I mean, it feels like forever ago, but maybe it's not.
It surprised me to realize that we started programming it over a year ago.
Wow.
And from 2 years ago is when we knew that we had a problem coming. And then Google lowered the boom and changed things around so that we had to scramble with Hangouts. And Hangouts survived in YouTube, but everything on the peripheral realm kind of fell apart and reassembled and doesn't work well. And so we just decided to come up with a better solution.
Mm-hmm.
So is a plugin commercial, or is it just a free download?
It's a free download. I really don't want to charge for it.
And it, I guess I might have been one of the first or the first. I'm not sure if I was.
I think you were the #1 user to try it out, and I'm really glad you're still here using it. Yeah. That's some important information for me.
Roland,
And,
if you could put a link in the VCP plugin, that would be great. The link to the WordPress. I can then go ahead and pimp it out to the people inside Wealthy Affiliate.
Yeah, I will post that. And the link, actually, if you just went to anyone has WordPress, they can go into the back end in the plugin add new section and just search for VCP, and I'm the only thing that comes up.
Nice.
Right on.
Nice. I'll get you 2 million downloads, Roland.
Yay.
Wow.
That's going to be a lot of phone calls for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ready for support. Standing by.
Well,
thank you.
And I should mention that throughout all this experimentation, Roland has always been there whenever something didn't work right, or through all the different versions, etc. He has been there to as support all the way along. So really appreciate that. I really like. I love the idea of hosting these Hangouts right from my website, and that's what VCP allows you to do. And yeah, so it's really good. Although Roland, I went looking for a past Hangout on your website, and I couldn't find it.
I haven't set it up yet as far as the archive of the old shows. I'm too busy.
I discovered that. So
yeah, I've been working on being able to see the most recent show on as close to the front page as possible. I think I've got that worked out. Yeah. And really my focus up till this point was how to produce the best show I can, not worrying about trying to promote all the shows, but how to do the best one I could.
Yeah. Well,
that's why we focused on that.
So you could go and have a look at how I set up my archive, because I have, I don't know how many are in there now. So, and it's all part of this SEO thing, is that if you've got the archive, what you do is link to the page. So it's an internal link, and so people don't need to go somewhere. So it's a good idea.
Agreed.
Yeah. So that's really good news, though, is that you're up and you got accepted by WordPress, etc. So that's really moving forward. So okay, so now just in case our members here don't remember what we were going to chat about this morning, we were going to talk about the importance of testing. And somewhere along the way, we really, I guess my intro was obsessing over pricing visuals, colors, markets, etc., rather than obsessing over things, then just do it. So just doing it, sometimes if you're not sure it's going to work, then just do it. And if it doesn't bring the results that you want, then you try something different. So I see that Roland has a comment up there.
Yes.
And I'm going to white box that. So who is that? Oh, this is from Vivek. Testing should always tell us whether we are getting closer to our goal or going further away from it.
And his statement is much longer than that. You should probably go down and read in the comment stream what he wrote. It's quite extensive and a lot of good information.
Yes, I can do that because I'm able to do that. So testing should, just to go back to the beginning, testing should always tell us whether we are getting closer to our goal or going further away from it. One of the major traps I have seen in testing any software is if we test the software against the logic it is supposed to implement, the test results are invariably pointless. And the next part is bolded. We should test software against customer requirements and not software design. If you test against software design, you are assuming software design to exactly match what the customer requires. And I guess that is an assumption, isn't it? Which may not be accurate. That's my 2 cents worth in regards to testing. So yeah, that's a good place for us to begin.
That might have been more like a nickel or so.
Yeah, it is a little bit more, but so I mean, there's a lot of first of all, let's just talk about why testing is important. I mean, that's one thing. Will it bring about the results that you're looking for? So in terms of your own business, but I guess you're gonna really look at what kinds of results you're going to get in relation to your customer or your audience. So are there any other reasons we might like to do some testing?
Yeah, to find if a product matches the expectations. As a freelancer, I've done a ton of testing on all sorts of different software products. And one of the things is to find out whether it works as advertised or whether something's broken and needs to be fixed.
Okay, so whose expectations?
Well, I mean, in this case, it's largely to do with the developer, just to find out if their product's working correctly.
Okay.
And when I've tested, many times I've found that something's actually broken within the software. And that's what I write about. Or if there are limitations in what quite often developers will state a program will do many, many things, and quite often it doesn't. And my job is to write about that and to inform the audience, hey, there's a limitation here. If you try and do this, it won't work.
Okay.
And then that's useful feedback for the developers to fix it.
Okay. So, so in terms of a developer, and I suppose as all of us have our own websites, I guess we could be considered developers in a sort of a quasi way. So is the website meeting our expectations, I guess would be one way to say it. And Gina, I got a sense that you're itching to get in there and say something.
Well, in my background, because it's in change management, I was often in charge of user acceptance testing, both for customers, but also for clients. And one of the things that we always had to be really careful was in our test environment, there's two things that we had to do. One was to really allow testing, and that was that often the scripts for testing are set up So as one of my clients said, a monkey could do it. So you really want to have informed testers who know how to break the system or go somewhere other than just pure scripting. You're still trying to accomplish a particular result, but how you go about accomplishing that should be intuitive. The other one is I find platforms really make a big difference. So where you're building, for instance, on a desktop and expecting it to work on mobile, how it sometimes appears on a PC versus an iPad. And everybody has different, let's say, barriers or speeds, criteria, but also different speeds. And so, for instance, the Bank of Canada, we were testing inside the bank, which was great. But the moment we started testing outside of the bank, then we ran into all sorts of firewalls and things that would block us. And the thing is that the real thing, in my point of testing, is if a test fails with a customer, getting them back is really, really hard because they don't want to make the effort, and it'll take a lot of effort to get them back.
Ah. So it's
and you call this user acceptance?
Yes.
Versus user experience?
Yeah, cool. So we had to do that with every major software, is to do user acceptance testing.
Mm.
Yeah, we didn't have a name for it where I was. I was just working as a reviewer, reviewing all sorts of different software products to see if they performed according to what the developer said. Quite often they didn't, or sometimes, sorry, as Gina was saying, part of my job was to see if I could break it. And I would deliberately try and break it and find out what the limitations are, because once I knew what it wouldn't do, then I was in a better place to talk about it. And in terms of the audience, it would make a big difference for them, because then they would know what the limitations are.
So that they wouldn't set up expectations that they couldn't meet.
Yes.
In their marketing.
Could I jump in with a question? I had when you were talking about what the user acceptance, I had trouble picturing exactly what the user was doing in experimenting. Okay. So I'd like to have a little bit of picture there.
Sure. Okay. So basically, there's a couple things you want to test. The usability, can they find things easily? And then when it comes to scripts, you have them perform an actual transaction and then see if the transaction delivers the results. So let's say you're removing money from a particular bank into the Bank of Canada system. Did the right amount come through? Did something happen to it on the way?
So are we talking about from a remote location or from in the bank? Because you mentioned something about when people are in the bank and the firewalls and so on.
What we learned is we needed to do both, because when we tested within the bank, it would all work perfectly. And the moment we tried it in banking centers, they said it's not working. And what happens if one thing goes wrong? They go, oh, the system's crap. It doesn't work. We want to go back to our old one.
So essentially, we have to know that all devices function properly on the software, and that no matter where they are, the software functions properly too.
Yeah, and a script is doing something like creating a transaction, updating a transaction, and canceling a transaction. So that's the simplest form of looking at it.
Mm.
Yeah, there is another important aspect to all of this, which I encountered repeatedly, is it has to do with the instructions. And if you're dealing with a complex procedure in software, you need to use lots of screenshots, lots of icons, video if it's really complex, because if you don't, if you just rely on text, the user's not going to be able to find whatever it is you're talking about on the screen. They're going to be totally lost. They won't be able to get anything done. And that was the case with one product I reviewed, wrote a review on it, and I said to the developer, I said, you've made some major mistakes. You've relied on text like 80% of the time, and your complaints will be right through the roof because you're not giving enough information to the users so they can use your software properly. As soon as you fix that, all your complaint calls are going to drop dramatically. Another thing is workflow. This one guy approached me to review his software, and it was just an absolute mess because he went from his place to the programmer and understanding it from there, but from someone who was like the user at the other end, in this case me, I couldn't figure it out And it took me forever back and forth with the guy before I finally was able to understand what was going on. Then I could write a workflow and say to him, hey, this is where it's fallen down. This is what you need to fix.
So what from that, what I'm hearing is what developers, and whether that's a website or a software of some sort, it's how important it is to take in the different learning styles and do something that relates to all of the different learning styles.
Yeah, it's hugely important.
Yeah.
And quite often people who are developing products, they don't say that, or they'll say something like one set of instructions I remember, it said, go to the library. Well, they didn't say where it was. I spent 20 minutes looking for it and I couldn't find it. I couldn't even do step one. I had to quit. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really important to say, okay, if you're going to do something, where is it? What does it look like? How do I find it?
Right. Now, Roland has put up a message from who?
WeWake, and he's making a comment, maybe possibly a contributor to the point that Nathan was making there. So you want to read it, or shall I?
Go ahead, Roland.
Okay, to Nathan, in response to what you've been saying, testing a software against what a software developer claims is pointless as far as customers are concerned, because software may have a great feature in developer's point of view, but if the feature is useless for the customer, then the feature is useless. I am speaking as a software developer with over 3 decades of experience as a developer myself. Yes, and he has done some major league stuff in his developing, so I would say he's probably one of the authorities in the audience. He might be the only audience member, but he's definitely an authority.
Yeah, he's right. Because many times developers will put in stuff into a piece of software that isn't necessarily useful or helpful. It's what the developer thinks that the users want, but they don't necessarily want it. And I've seen that time and time again. Or they just load stuff up with features and stuff like that. They make it so complicated that it's like the learning curve is huge. It's like trying to climb a skyscraper to try and learn the software. And if they could simplify things for the users and say, okay, to the users, what do you want? Get that feedback and build it that way. I think a lot of the time they would make life easier for everybody.
Can I chime in?
Yes, please.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to circle back here and talk about what's I think pretty important to all of us as solopreneurs or business owners is not so much as software development and software testing, but more as user testing or experience testing for our own funnels, our own websites. Because I personally think that software development testing is completely different than user experience testing on a website or within a funnel of sorts, whether that's through email marketing, sales, and so on and so forth. So, the testing that I like to do for a website is basically conversion, CTA testing. So changing the things that are at the bottom of a web page. A CTA, for those of you who don't know, is call to action. So it's the thing that you want people to do on your page, on your blog post, after they read your post, right? So it could be a call, click, come by, or engage, one of those 4. It could be anything really, it's what you want your audience to do. So, and I think by changing the words of your call to action statement, so call here or call now, click this, come by, or it can be a little more creative. I think that's really important to test out because, words play a huge important role in how people make decisions. And, I like to call it verbal gymnastics, where you can kind of flip things around and do all sorts of different things within your call to action statements at the bottom. And it can actually have a direct result, Now, to do this, you can just bootstrap it and make and track the progress ad hoc, meaning track how many downloads or actual CTAs you do with statement A, and then change it to statement B, and then track it, how many downloads or whatever end up, you know, at whatever CTA you have. And then you can kind of make that comparison. That's the easiest, most simple, free way to do CTA or split testing or A/B testing for call to actions. Now, there are different things like software and apps and plugins that can kind of help you automate that. But I think, you know, at the very core, that's the easiest way to do tracking. And I think that's something that everyone should be doing, assuming that you have a CTA. Now, if you don't have a CTA, get a CTA, you know, on your blog posts. So I think every single piece of content, every single page, whether it be a blog post, sales page, should have some sort of CTA, you know. You know, it could be ask for a comment or do something, and that's where you should start right there.
Yeah, I agree. So part of it is using, like, say, Google Analytics to track it, but do you also, like, what do you use for setting up the A/B testing? I remember using analytics in years past, but what do you use yourself, Jay?
Well, right now I'm actually using something called Sumo, but for the automation. But beforehand, just straight up user experience testing. So if I'm getting people to click, most of my CTAs are buttons saying click here to go here. So week 1, we just track how many people clicked, right, using Google Analytics. Week 2, week 2 is you know, just collecting the same data and the same information, and then you just kind of compare the results day by day.
So that,
excuse me, I'll right back.
That was kind of what happened. I may have mentioned this last time. I don't remember whether it was during the recording or afterward, but somewhere when in the past, when we had that conversation about using the word free, we talked about how, you know, the psychological aspects of using a word like that. And so at the end of that conversation, I said, okay, I'm going to go on my website and change some wording, because I had the word free. So I went in and just changed one thing, from saying that it's free. I said, click here for my gift to you. And before the day was out, after I did that, 2 people signed up. so that was something that was totally obvious right away. So I think when we're working on our own website, trying out different wording, trying out different placement of buttons. I think we've Roland, in your one of your Smarties a long time ago, we talked about you know, pop-ups. What kind of reaction pop-ups bring from certain people, and the way pop-ups work and all of that, whether it's way up at the top or whether it's way down at the bottom, or where, you know, if you've got a call to action button, where should it be? And I guess the only way to tell is to try it in different places.
Not only that, the color of the button, as an example,
Yeah.
or a different style of the button, all of those factor in. There's so many different things that you can test. It's kind of endless, really.
Mm-hmm.
For best effect, a call to action should be above the fold. There's no doubt. But I don't always do that or insist upon it. But it should be, without having to scroll anywhere, go anywhere. It's a good idea to have it above the fold. But there are a lot of strategies to this. And what you're talking about is the strategies of all these things, even pop-ups, even email marketing, even ads in Facebook. They're all plausible. They're all good. The problem with them is that it's exactly the point that Bill was making last week on my show. And that's Bill Graham. And that any system gets tainted by the users of the advertisers and promoters. And when you can't believe the advertisers and promoters anymore. They look at the system and say, I hate the system. But it's not the system per se, it's how it's being used. And so what we have is a platform and a palette, if you will, and an area where we can find ways to be distinctively different. And so one of the things is we say, well, let's avoid the word free. But I'm looking at it a little differently. I'm going to say that my plugin is free, and it really is free. And I'm going to be redefining free for the people and stand out against the group of people that say free and don't really mean it. So I've got a little acutely different philosophy there, but all the opportunities like that are opportunities for me to show people why I'm different.
Well, but it's a question of testing what it is that you're hoping people will do and how they react.
It's not just testing; it's what you design in your testing, because depending upon your campaign, what you say is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you just put the word free out there is different than me challenging the word free and making that a big issue and proving to people when I say free, I really mean free. So that's using free, which is common enough, in a little different way. So how we use these tools will make a big difference.
Yeah, one of the marketers out there, a guy by the name of Eben Pagan, was talking about something called moving the free line, where you might give just a tiny sliver of what you offer for free, and then the rest is the paid product. And what he was talking about, if I remember correctly, is offering a lot more for free than not, and then what's paid on the back end is just. I can't remember how it works, but that's what I recall about it.
Well, we've had conversations about that too, haven't we, everyone? We talked about how important it is to give your very, very best, and assume that a positive experience is what's going to encourage a person to carry on with you. So, I mean, we've covered a few things that we need to be looking at in terms of our website. Good. Jay, can you turn your mic off, please? Yeah, thank you. So just, I mean, just moving things around, trying the placement of things, the color of things, etc. So, Alana, what about you? I know that you have been working for a long time on your Empty Nesters blog, blog and website. I mean, have you done a lot of testing on yours?
Well, I have. There's a few things I've done recently, and one of them is I have been experimenting with colors, and I went online and I did some research on which colors people respond to. Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different websites, and they all have their own take on what people respond to, and it depends on what you're actually trying to promote. So people who are looking into make money online type sites, let's say, respond to green CTAs, business type websites that are offering like a professional service, if you will. People seem to respond better to the blue colors. One of the things I've done most recently is I've kind of, in the posts that I've put out, I've created a spreadsheet, and I've just gone back after I post them. I take maybe a couple of days, maybe a week, and I'll go back and see where they land in the Google rankings. And so if I manage to make it on page 1, then that tells me that people are interested in that topic, and I can continue to write more around that type of a topic. There's other things I've written that don't even hit the first 10 pages, so I kind of know no one's really interested in that information. So that's helping me get to know my audience. So that's kind of where I'm taking it at the minute.
And that's a really, really good point, Alana, because I write a weekly blog, Mindset Monday. And recently, I mean, I've been writing things that I thought were of interest to solopreneurs. But the last little while, I have written a couple of posts that were more like personal journals, and just kind of sharing what I think about something or something that's happened. And I suddenly started to get more interest, which I was quite surprised at. So
yeah, and I think people want to know a little more. I think they want to know a little more about the person that's writing. It can't really be one dimensional. I think they want to know a more rounded background on you, what your interests may be, so that there's more forms of connection there, more ways to connect, like the personal blog you wrote about Thanksgiving. Lots of people in Canada, I'm sure, can connect to that.
yeah.
So more types of things like that. And I'm actually quite bad at that. I have a blog on my website, but I haven't written on it in quite a while. So maybe I need to go down that road as well.
Well, and you make a good point about the importance of sharing something about yourself. You also made something that I think is really important for us to emphasize here, and that is it's a way to really get to know your audience.
Definitely.
Yeah, because getting to know your audience is no easy feat. It's difficult to do. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. So I see Roland has put something up again. I'm going to put that up. And
another comment by WeWake, and maybe we can go right to Jay and let him address this.
Do you people think that for A/B testing, both A and B have to be very similar? How about A being Facebook advertisements and B being email marketing using MailChimp, etc.? As you can see, I am talking about two completely different media. So what do you people think?
Well, first of all, A/B testing has to do with comparing two different attributes in the very same environment. So when you talk about Facebook and email marketing, they're two separate concepts. And even though they're both trying to achieve the same thing, they're very different. So A/B testing would be trying out the A/B within each separate realm, not comparing Facebook to email, but two tests in email marketing or two tests in Facebook, as opposed to Facebook versus email. You might do better in one than the other, but it won't be proven through A/B testing of this nature.
However,
I agree with Roland. He's correct.
But it's still, I mean, if you're looking at more than one technique, shall we say, and you get better results from one technique than the other, that's still part of your testing process. It's just a different kind of.
But not with A/B testing. A/B testing is comparing two different variations of the same thing. So, for example, the sales page would be virtually identical in every way except, say, the headlines changed or an image is changed. And that's where you can really start to measure things. Like I mentioned earlier before we got on, one page is the control, the one that's converting in a certain way, and the other one is like the challenger, if you will. And see if you can use the new version to do better than the old version. And if it does, then it becomes a control again, and then you start testing another thing. But as Roland was saying, and I agree with him, it has to be within the same realm. If you're testing two different things, you can't accurately measure either one.
Well, the whole premise, I believe, is that you've got a field of potential clients, and within that field, you try this and you try that. That's an A/B test. It's not comparing one field of clientele potentials to another field of clientele potential. The test itself is concerning the same field in both cases. And I really wish that you would pick this up, Jay, because I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I think that you probably might be able to add a little bit more expertise to this. Come on, dude.
Yeah, sorry. It's the curse that I got to live with, being busy now. So I had a couple calls I had to address. So I apologize for jumping off for a few minutes. So in terms of A/B testing, I'm a little discombobulated here. So, but A/B testing, similar to what Nathan was saying, is you have a baseline, which is your, as we call it, he calls your control. You change one metric and one metric at a time, whether that be, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's all within the same environment. So it's not, the audience isn't any different than it's the same audience funnel that's coming in. Now you could segment an audience as an actual test. So you've got from a user experience, you can change things where you don't change anything on page, but you change you're tracking the traffic that's coming in. So for example, you can track the metric of all your mobile traffic, all traffic coming in from phones versus all traffic coming in from desktop computers. So because those are two completely different behaviors, people typically, they want something instant and right away on a mobile environment. So that can be a split test in itself, or an A/B test, right? It doesn't always have to be on page. It can be different audiences. It could be different times of day to track things, One thing that I do remember you said, Roland, and I did want to challenge it, is that you had mentioned that your opinion was that most call to actions should be above the fold, whereas I personally think that it should be at the end of the content. So now if your content ends above the fold, that would be great. Just as a quick side note, for those who don't know what above the fold means, it's everything that you see on your screen before you have to scroll down. Okay, so that's what above the fold is. So typically with above the fold type of marketing, you want to have everything on there, including your call to action, before people scroll down. But I think, there's certainly exceptions to the rule in that case.
Sure.
With landing pages, sorry, let me just get my point across. With landing pages where you want people to opt in, typically the CTA is on the right-hand side with the button on the bottom right above the fold. But with blog post content, typically you want your call to action after the content. For example, if you want just comments on your blog posts, you don't want to leave a comment before people actually read the content, right? Sure. So as I said, there are exceptions to the rule. And I think a lot of people nowadays building landing pages aren't really building typical landing pages, because they're becoming more like banners. People are becoming immune to them. People are building landing pages as blog posts, or blog posts are being considered as landing pages, where they've got your content material where people scroll down, they read the whole thing, their pre-sale, and then there's the call to action, opt in, buy, click, call, come by, engage, whatever. So anyways, that's my 42 cents.
I was waiting for you to jump in, Jay, because I knew when Roland said that, I knew that you were
I was thinking.
I was sitting on my hands.
I was thinking the same thing, but Jay got to it first. But the other thing too about the long form sales page, the things that I remember and doing, is that you use several calls to action all the way through it. You use soft call to action, which would just be a link with a blue thing on it. Is, click here to get started. You might have like 3 or 4 of them, and then the really strong call to action at the very end of the piece. There's so many different variations, and as Jay was saying, like the sales page or the opt-in page, squeeze page sometimes called, where you want everything above the fold and that opt-in button right there.
I have to tell you how I react to those. I despise those big long sales pages. And when I see
and they work,
I just leave.
Just because they work does not mean that we should all be using them.
True, but if you have, and this is an age-old argument with copywriters and those who read copy, the argument is through about long form versus short form copy. And in every single case, if you talk to them, long form copy wins. So that's
Doesn't
from
win
the
with
horse's.
me.
That's fine, but that's just you. What about the
I'm
other
only
99
one.
people?
I'm only one. I know.
What about the other
No, you're
99?
not the only one. You're not the only one, Lolan. And I'm a believer that the environment is changing. And so if everyone feels that it's going to be the status quo, the same old, same old, same old, personally, I think that they're going to be wrong. And the age of authenticity is upon us. And now we're redefining the word authenticity and genuine and those things. And the people will believe authenticity and genuineness where they feel it and where they actually experience it. So the people who are using this to fool people or trick people into buying stuff that they don't really need, they're going to have eventually more and more problems. But the people who are expressing themselves genuinely and really leading towards people towards a good offer or a solution to their problems, they're the ones that are going to benefit from the authenticity age. And that's upon us. So the sales page is just to get people to click. It's a strategy. If you're educating people and providing good information in your sales page, that's one thing. If you're just pushing cliche after cliche at people, the long sales page is bullshit. So it really depends on what we are using it for and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And
again, we have to test it. That's the only real way of knowing. If we test it, then we'll know for sure. Otherwise, we're just guessing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Why should we test?
We want to find out what works.
But how do you know? But what if something's working already? You are getting conversions, So let's say, hypothetically speaking, you have a page with a call to action. It's working. You're getting your conversions. So why test? This isn't a trick answer. I just wanted to get everyone's opinion on why people.
If I'm getting the results from whatever, I wouldn't see a need to test.
It depends on whether you want to improve your results or not. If you're happy with everything as it is, no issue. If you want to improve or you want to change or you want to get different results, I would think that's why you would start testing.
Don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yeah, right.
There is that, but there are some people who, even when they're getting really spectacular results, they want to see if they can do better.
Well, but sometimes in that effort of doing better, you might find by testing putting something in there that doesn't work at all, you could have an adverse effect. So
it's true, absolutely true.
Yeah. So Fred, what about you? I mean, you, I see I get your blog pops up for me every now and again. Are you doing any testing at all on your site?
My current challenge is I've been working with youth face to face, and I'm trying to get them to do it online. The reason I joined this Google Hangouts was I wanted to use Google Hangouts with the youth, but I found get them to use it, they are in another world and I don't know that world. So my challenge now, current challenge, and maybe there's somebody who's listening or maybe even someone here, I'm looking for some young people. I've got my eye on two. One I've known for years, he's now 20, very computer literate, and I have another 13-year-old who's very, very vibrant person, just does all sorts of things. And I'm approaching them to see if they can consult with me to see what would work with the young people, because I'm an old guy. I have my ideas, but they have their ideas, and I'm looking for young people. So that's sort of a broadcast. So as far as testing, I tested Google Hangouts with them and found this is a challenge. They're not really into Google Hangouts. The same like they're not into email and they're not into Facebook. So I have to find out from them what would work, what I'm trying to do, the online coaching, because the face-to-face I've been doing for years. It's to get them to do online, and it's very important. So this is my challenge. So maybe someone knows some young people who'd be my consultants, so to speak, or my mastermind of young people. That's where I am at. A lot of the testing I agree with. I mean, I used to sell software, and usability testing that Gina mentioned, that I relate to that. It's unbelievable, you know, what Nathan and Vivek said. You can produce products and you think it's fantastic, but it's useless. And we've been through that. So that's another area. And then, so this has been very interesting conversation. And of course, the A/B testing, what's attractive and what's not attractive. Well, my sort of testing is I've got to find from them what they think is attractive. So that's where I'm at. But testing, yes, I've been through that for years when I was in sales. It's quite amazing what we think is good, and the user doesn't use it. Well, then it's no good. If the user, even if it does offer sometimes too many challenges. So it's once again a very interesting conversation. Testing is important because if, as I think you said, well, and why do we do testing? When Jay asked, well, we want to know what's working. Is it working well? Even if we're getting great results, maybe we want to test. And if we find out we are getting great results and there's nothing we can do that's better, and you know, we test and say, oh, these new ideas don't work. But we have to test them because we have our opinions, but those don't count. It's our users and our customers. We have to test. So it's a great topic. I enjoy it. And that's why I enjoy joining in.
Fred, you might want to look.
Yep.
I was just going to say, Fred, you might want to look at using Instagram Stories or Instagram Live, because that's where I think the majority of your audience is. And it's a way that you can broadcast to all of your audience and going forward. And it's a live feed as well. So, and they can actually talk to you, chat with you within that environment. So.
Is Instagram something that you would only use on a smartphone, or can you use it within a desktop?
Well, you can use it within a desktop. You can't. Well, there's hacks where you can broadcast through your webcam and stuff on Instagram. But yeah, primarily it's an app, right? But it is, you can actively use it through a browser.
I appreciate that, Jay.
I've only done it once or twice. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
I mean, when I just look at my grandsons, for example, they don't. I mean, they never move off their cell phone. They don't even have computers. So it's got to be something that lends itself really, really well to mobile. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here real quick too, because piggybacking off what Jay just said, I have a 19-year-old daughter and she's obsessed with Instagram and Facebook group chats. So that's where she's spending all her time. And her laptop is only for college work and watching Netflix. So that's where she's spending her time. She's an Instagram junkie and she's into Facebook group chats. So.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, I mean,
I have to leave as well. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks
Bye,
for
Fred.
joining us, Fred. Jay, you mentioned that, and I see we're running over here, but you did mention that you're using something for doing testing. Do you want to just briefly cover that before we?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to just quickly answer my own question, though, if that's okay.
That was rhetorical, was it?
Yeah, exactly. It was a test. So the one thing that I learned early in my internet marketing career is that competitive advantage, one big competitive advantage is knowledge. And that's knowledge about your audience, knowledge about your people visiting your site. And I think, and that's, in my opinion, my number one reason to do any kind of testing, even when I'm already having conversions, because I want to be able to understand my audience's behavior when they visit my site based on, you know, A and B. So, you know, what are the words that are striking a chord with them? What are the things that seem to be affecting their conversion? And because that's not only going to help you with that one page that you're testing on, but it's going to help you throughout your whole internet marketing, or well, my whole internet marketing career, is understanding the human behavior of the person who's looking at my site. You know, the person wherever they are in the world, looking at the site. You know, looking at so you know, if I learn that there's going to be certain words or phrases or grammar that affects whether they buy something or not, then I'm going to leverage that, scale and leverage. So competitive knowledge, or competitive advantage, is knowledge, and do not ever underestimate that at all. Always learn about your audience. Always continually learn about your audience, because it is the one huge metric that can make or break an online business is knowledge of your audience. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that out of the way. So yeah, I use a tool called Sumo. So it's called, it used to be called Sumo Me, but they've now changed it to Sumo. So it's sumo.com. They provide tools to, primarily the tools that they have are to basically fancy up your lead generation opt-ins, so email opt-ins, so they can do spins and all sorts of fun things. So so there's that aspect. So being able to utilize that. You can also just create buttons, like CTA buttons, just buttons where people click. Now with all of the offerings that they have within Sumo, you can actually test variants of your button, whether it be color change, word change, when it appears, how often it appears. I mean, it's endless in terms of what you can change. So that's what I use. And the cool thing is that it handles all the A/B testing stuff for you. It creates that your baseline. So to say, okay, well, what's your baseline? What's the one thing that you're testing, right? What is A? And then you create B, and you literally copy what the button or the opt-in, and you make that as your B. Make your changes, and then say, all right, test this, and then you can test the frequency as to when A turns into B. You know, typically when you start, it's 50-50, and then it'll track the results for you. You can get your results within a day as to how people are affecting. What is it that they're clicking? So. And it's great. So if you notice, and I've actually learned a lot of things about my audience based on that, a lot of things, and it's just such a fabulous tool to be able to learn about. I learned that people prefer a certain color over with my buttons. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. And certain words and stuff like that. So yeah, I love it. It's a great tool. When I first learned about it, I hated it because it made pop-ups annoying. But since they really shift the way that they suggest using pop-ups, so it's fantastic.
Jay, I was just taking a look at their site there, and they have a basic account that's free, and what they're offering is A/B testing and all templates for free, and then it goes up to the different prices. Do you think we could get what we need, I guess, from the A/B testing just from having a free account?
Because I've never had it as the free version, I don't know. Best thing to do is you could try it. Yeah. Since it's free, right? You only have to commit to an email. So.
Yeah, I think it's only one account as well, or one website it looks like as well. So
yeah,
it might be worth just testing it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we've covered pretty much everything, and we've lost a few of our people this morning. And I believe that's partially because we've run over, etc. So I'm going to remind everyone at this stage of the game that it is important to do what you love with passion.